Hello everyone and welcome to Wine List Live. So it's February, we're doing February box tasting, and the wines that you will have tonight are, we've got our Ryzlink Rýnský from the Czech Republic, and we've got our StephanO Weingut. So this is a Trinculo and it is from Austria. So we've got new maps today. We've not done Czech and Austria before, so it's going to be very, very exciting. And as you'll see on the maps later, surprisingly near each other, both of those wines. So it's actually not that far between them. So what we'll be doing, if you've not been to a Wine List Live before, welcome. You've got, you should see on the side of your screen, you've got a comment area, so you can all comment and say hello and say hi. And if you're having some nice food with it as well, let me know, because I mean, it'd be a great night if you're having food and you're having wine. What a lovely Wednesday. And if you're watching this later, so this is live, but it saves onto YouTube. So you can always watch it on the weekend if you don't want to drink midweek. And if you're watching it on Sunday, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely day. So what we will be doing, we'll go through our white wine. We'll break it down a little bit. We will break down with our tasting cards as well. A few of you have done a few of these before, so you'll know what we're doing, but it's great practice. And when you do your official wine exams, if you want to be a master of wine at some point, then you do exactly this in all your wine tastings. You break the wine down, it helps you figure it out. It helps you in blind tastings as well. Oh, there's so many people saying hi. Ruth, Henry, Sarah, Michael, Louise, Anne, Martin, Emma. Hi everyone, it's so nice to see you all. Yeah, so I'll be asking you questions, so please do join in with all the comments as well. It'll be very fun and exciting. So, shall we pour a glass of wine? I mean, it's 8 PM already, so we better do, really. So if you want to pour out your Riesling first, the double R, Ryzlink Rýnský. So, again, like I said last time, if you want to pour it to the widest point in your glass, warm it up in the palm of your hand a little bit, help your wine out, help yourself out really to smell your wine, and swill it around in your glass. So you always see wine experts swilling it around. You might think, why? It's helping us to taste it. So it's basically mixing the wine with all the air really. So it's releasing aromas up off your wine. All the aromas are drifting up into the atmosphere and the air, but because your glass is tapered here, they get trapped inside the glass. It's helping us. As soon as we put our nose there, we can smell all the aromas going on. Oh, that's so nice. Everyone's saying hello. Hello, Andrew. Hello, Julio. Hi, Matt. Okay, Matt, we've got this. You've not been to one before. You'll be absolutely fine. As long as you're drinking wine, it's okay. But when I said pour it up to the widest point, I know it's only a little bit of wine, but you can just keep topping up. It's no issue at all. You've got the bottle of wine next to you. You don't need to put it back in the fridge. We'll have finished it in the next half an hour. So, cheers everyone. Shall we do a little toast to Wednesday? Cheers. Yum. Oh, I'm so excited we're doing a Riesling at the moment. Oh, everyone's making friends in the comments. That's so nice. Hi Tim. Hi Christine. Yeah, I feel like every single person who's watching has said hello, and I like that. We'll carry on with that. So, we have our tasting card, and on this side, especially for Matt who hasn't done a tasting before and is brand new to Wine List, so exciting. But on these tasting cards, I basically give you a sort of first impression about wine. You've got food pairings, so you know exactly what you can have in terms of snacks to go with your wine as well. We'll talk about this in a minute, but sometimes when you have food and wine pairings, it can make it wonderful, or it can clash so much that both of them are ruined. We'll talk about that anyway. There's loads of foods that go with Riesling. If you do ever want a vegan option though for these, let me know. Drop me an Instagram message sometime. I've always got a vegan backup, so don't worry. I just put the best flavours to go on here for the optimum ones, and then you can tweak it and choose as to what you would like. Hello, everyone who's joining. So, if we flip it over, you've got a lot about the wine here. Advanced learning, trivia. We'll go through it, but we'll also add on some extra bits as well. So, on the other side, this is what we're going to break down. And basically, this wine, Ryzlink Rýnský, as you see on the bottle, you can see it just at the bottom here. But Ryzlink Rýnský is basically the Czech word for Rhine Riesling. And Rhine Riesling is just another name for Riesling. So Riesling is a grape variety that originated on the Rhine River. So the Rhine River is just where the border is between the northeast of France and the southeast of Germany, aka where my family is from. So we'll pronounce Riesling, and we'll do it the proper way as well, because I mean, it's so tricky with Riesling. You sort of look at grapes and think, how on earth do we pronounce that? So I hear a lot of people saying Ryzlink, and I feel like that's really big in America. They always seem to say Ryzling. But whenever I learnt German, the easiest way, if anything is slightly German, is if it has an I and an E next to each other, they flip and reverse around all the time, but always pronounce the second letter, ignore the first letter. That's the easiest way to do it. So when we say Riesling, if you want to do it in the proper French way, I'll try and sound like my mum. Riesling. And you basically say Riesling and put them together, so it's Riesling. Or if you want to say it in an English way, just say Riesling. So you've kind of got the Z and the S next to each other. You can all practice now. I mean, you can't really put that in the comments, can you? Tim has said, can he have another sip now? Tim, you keep sipping away. I'm not going to hold anyone back from drinking. Keep going. Aim is to finish you don't have to, but we'll finish the entire bottle in half an hour, basically. That's the aim. But you can save some for tomorrow. It will save for a good few days. It might even see you into the weekend, this wine, if you don't finish it. So, belated hello from Nick and Jessica. Oh, Natasha would love to see vegan veg pairings. Let me know anytime. I try to mix it up, so I put a bit of a mixture of everything on the food pairings, but if you would prefer the vegan one for something, just email us or Instagram messages. I'll let you know. So, Ryzlink Rýnský. So it's a bit of a wine trade favourite. What really interests me is fashion and wine. Wine is completely fashion. We think it's this really archaic thing that's always exactly the same, and you're either in the wine club or you're not, but it's such a fashion with wine. It's basically what's popular, and who dictates what's popular? All of us. So at the moment, I mean, have you heard the phrase ABC, anything but Chardonnay? In the 90s, Chardonnay was super, super popular. It was the fashionable grape. Everyone drank it. Then there's loads of rubbish ones going out there because everyone was drinking it and spending money on it. So as soon as something gets really popular, you get amazing ones, but you also get people trying to just make a quick buck on it. So you get really rubbish ones at the same time, and people are still charging loads of money for it, especially in bars. They'll charge you like £30 for a crap Chardonnay. That was back in the 90s. Then sort of falls out of fashion because everyone's used to having really, really bad ones. Now in fashion is Sauvignon Blanc. And there were some amazing ones out there. It was the New Zealand Sauvignons that everyone loved to talk about. But because people know that that's what people want and it's in fashion, now there's some really rubbish ones on the market, and they're still way too much for what they're worth. Some of them, some are still amazing. But then we're sort of getting to peak Sauvignon Blanc at the moment, so it's going to start falling out of fashion again as soon as these restaurants and bars reopen. We might be ready for a new grape variety, the new fashionable wine to drink. And what is it going to be? I like to guess this all the time. So I think, and many people in the wine trade think it's going to be Riesling. And we're having a Riesling tonight. I'm so happy. It's such a wonderful grape. So why is it everyone's favourite? Well, loads of things. We'll break it down. Oliver said that Buckfast is also very fashionable. Mostly fashionable in Scotland, less so fashionable slightly south of there. Oh, and Emily's saying that the Foxglove Chardonnay that we sent out last month was so good. It's because Chardonnay went out of fashion and now it's coming back in because there's some amazing ones out there. But when you get it now, they really have to fight for being a good Chardonnay. They have to prove their point and be good. That's why I love going for Chardonnay. And yeah, Josh's personal favourite grape. So the first thing we'll talk about is, I mean, we're going to break this down, but should we we'll go through the first two because I want to tell you about acidity. But colour, we're looking at our characteristics on our tasting card, just the top row here. And colour, we can just look at our wine really. It's a white wine, it's pretty yellow in colour, but how yellow is it? If it's really clean and clear, it's not very intense, not much colour there. But if it's getting really sort of amber, honey coloured, that's super intense. So this one, what you can do is hold it over a white piece of paper at a 45-degree angle and look over it. And then you're comparing it to perfect bright white. You can see the exact colour of it. And what colour do you think this is? There's definitely some colour there. It's not completely clear. But it's a little bit green, if I'm honest. A just tiny bit of a green hue to it. It looks wonderful. So I'm going to go, definitely nowhere near medium yet, but it's not the lightest one. It's just going a few millimetres past light with a sort of wonderful fresh greeny tinge to it. So we can cross out tannins because white wine doesn't have any tannins inside it. It's got no skin contact. Tannin comes from skin contact. And then acidity. So this is what I want to talk about with Riesling. Basically, acidity is, it's acid inside the wine reacting with your taste buds, making your mouth water. It feels super refreshing. And Riesling is naturally really high acidity. And that's a great thing for the grape because it means it's so refreshing. Whenever you want a glass of water, if you just swap it out for a glass of wine with high acidity, it feels just as refreshing and rejuvenating. So, acidity is really good on a wine because it means that the wine can age for a really long time. When you age many white wines, they don't do very well from it. You have to have a really great white wine in order to age nicely, otherwise it's just gonna plummet, fall flat. So when you have a Riesling, this is one of the most bizarre grape varieties because a Riesling can age for up to 50 years and it can still be delicious after 50 years, which is incredible. How does it do that? A 50-year-old bottle of wine, surely that must be, most grapes are awful by then. Even when you get to the really fancy ones, it's a bit, 50 years is pushing it. But a 50-year-old Riesling is wonderful. Because of all that acidity, it sort of saves it all, keeps it really fresh inside there. And when you really age a Riesling, you can start to get some petrol-like aromas on it. So this one that we have is only a 2019, so it's not too aged. You can only get that petrol-like aroma when it's starting to really age. It becomes petrol-like honey, beeswax. You can smell that this is a Riesling. This tastes like a Riesling. It smells like a Riesling. It's such a good example of a Riesling. But because it's 2019, it's just keeping everything really young, vibrant and fresh. It's not going for that full-on bizarre petrol and beeswax, which sounds gross, but is delicious. So we'll talk about flavours in a second. We'll just do the next bits first. So the sweetness on this one. Another thing with Riesling, which is why you can tell it's a Riesling, is because it has that sort of really aromatic quality about it. Take a sip of this and think about the sweetness. When we talk about sweetness, we often say, oh, this wine tastes really sweet. And you might think that about this, but sweetness is actually a really scientific thing. So sweetness is how much sugar is actually present inside your wine. And you can see this on the reverse of the bottle. So yes, I did some Google translations of Czech, and Zbykowy kuka means sugar content. You can see it on the back here, and it's only 4.5 grams per litre, which in terms of wine is really quite low. So for sweetness, in order to call a wine off dry, so anything from 0 to 17 grams per litre is dry. This is only 4.5, that's tiny. Most wines are usually around there, sometimes a bit less, can go all the way up to 17. After 17, it's then off dry, which is when you notice a bit of that difference, that change. And I mean, if you compare a Coca-Cola, that's 100 grams of sugar per litre. Complete opposite end of the scale. Wine doesn't have much sugar inside there when it's a dry wine because, sciencey bit, when you make a wine, you take grape juice, which is full of sugar, you take yeast, which is how you make bread, and the yeast eats up the sugar and converts it into alcohol. So if you have alcohol in your wine, it's not going to have that much sugar, it's been converted already, so it doesn't actually have that sweetness. But, confusingly, can you taste all those really ripe, juicy fruits and really smell them though? Yeah, okay. I can't pronounce your name, but it looks like Hufgehof. Yeah, So Tim is saying, shall we close it up and keep it for later? I'm going to say no. Drink this wine, definitely. So when you learn about this in the eventual Wine Weeks 10 that is coming soon. And basically, when you have wines that are made for aging and wines that are meant to be drank straight away. And it's usually based on the winemaker. So they will keep some of their grapes back in the winery for aging, or they will make a wine. It's basically like being a chef when you're making wine, with a big a casserole pot, and you're changing everything, just making it perfectly and tweaking it so that it's ready to be made then. When you see a wine being sold in a wine shop or in a supermarket, it's meant to be drank within about 2 years, otherwise it can start to go down. When you get into the sort of extreme end of the scale, which is when it's sort of £100, over £100 for a bottle of wine, and if they say this can be aged, then you can start to keep it in your cellar. But this one I will drink straight away because it's meant to be young and juicy and vibrant and fresh. So Sam agrees, it does taste quite sweet even though it's low sugar, and that's classic Riesling. It's really, really aromatic. This is why, going on to our food pairings, that Riesling is always said to go really well with spicy food. Asian cuisine, sort of Thai, imagine Thai curry with this wine, it'd be wonderful. And the reason for that is, when you taste something with spice, if you've ever had a red wine with it and it tastes horrible, when you taste something with spice, it lowers your perception of fruitiness inside a wine, or sweetness, we won't use that word, fruitiness. So it lowers your perception of fruitiness, but increases your perception of bitterness and alcohol. So if you have a really sort of dry, aged, high alcohol, tannic red wine with a spicy food, it'd be really not that nice because it's really sort of out of balance. But if you have this wine with it, that little extra bit of fruitiness in there will just balance out. So that spicy food will make the wine feel dry, more dry, less fruity, more neutral, and it won't clash with that spiciness. It won't make it feel more spicy and bitter inside your mouth. If anyone is having spicy food, let me know, because it'll be very, very nice with this wine this evening. And if you don't have spicy food tonight, just save a tiny little bit for tomorrow and have a Thursday curry. So sweetness in this wine, it's a millimetre up from dry. It's only 4.5 grams per litre. So the other reason why this goes so well with food is because we've talked about the aromatic quality, all that flavour going on inside it, that fruity flavour, the smell of it as well. Classic Riesling. And the acidity, classic Riesling. Acidity in food is amazing because acidity cuts straight through food. It's wonderful with it. It feels refreshing. Especially if you have something sort of quite stodgy and fatty. So one of the pairings, we put sort of Asian cuisine, something with a little bit of spice, not too much because it's not really that fruity, this wine. You want to go really off dry if you're having something really spicy. The spicier you go, the more fruity you want to go. So it's going really well with that. And the other pairing that we put is really stodgy foods, because you have that acidity. It cuts straight through any stodgy food. So you can have this with, I think I put, what did we put? Yeah, pork, dumplings. It'd be really, really nice. Emma is having prawn Thai style curry for dinner tonight. Oh, perfect with this wine. That'll be really nice. And Hannah's having cured salmon. Wonderful. And Jonathan's having Thai curry. I hope you have a little bit left over so you can just have a bit of wine with it. Rachel's asked, how long does this wine last after we open it? And funnily enough, we actually put that in our newsletter on yesterday. Just went out yesterday morning. It depends how much, you can read our newsletter, but it depends how much wine you have left. So my wine is up to, there's about this much oxygen inside there. My wine's up to there. So it means it'll last, I'd say 4 days before it starts to go down a bit and lose some of the fruitiness, but it'll still be really nice. If you drink all the way down to here and have this much oxygen inside your bottle, it'll only last the night really, so you have to drink it the next day. So the more wine you have left over, the longer it'll last. I've done it before with, it was a Sauvignon Blanc. I opened it by accident, closed it again straight away, so it didn't have any oxygen left inside the bottle. It was a really high acidity wine, like this, and it lasted a month. Maybe don't try that if you don't want to risk it, but it worked. I couldn't believe it. So, oh, Natasha and Joshua just had veggie crispy duck pancakes. That'll be wonderful with this, all that aromatic flavour. So the next one we'll talk about is body on here. And body, those will already know I'm about to talk about glasses of milk again, but for Matt and everyone with Matt, body in wine is really simple. You imagine having 2 glasses of milk, and if one of your glasses of milk is skimmed milk, it's clean and cuts through like water, it's light bodied. And if you've got full fat milk, it's rich, heavy and rounded, and it's like full bodied wine. And the sort of the scale, that difference between them is if it's medium body or medium plus, medium minus. So what does this one feel like? Clean and cutting through, crisp, or sitting really rounded and fat and heavy? Let's have a sip. Cheers. I mean, I didn't actually need to take that sip because I've already written the answers down. Oh, that is nice. The acidity on there, really quite high. Not the highest, a few millimetres down from highest, but it's basically how much your mouth is watering. And it's still watering. Thank God there's a screen between us. But body on that, it definitely doesn't feel like full fat milk. It doesn't feel rich and rounded and big. It feels quite clean. It feels really fresh. So that's pretty light in body. You can go lighter. It's definitely got a little bit of a richness there. But always remember your parameters. The lightest of sort of each one in your characteristics is like that really easygoing Pinot Grigio that you sit and drink on a sunbed in summer. Super clear. I think someone asked in the comments if I've ever had a completely clear wine, and I think the clearest I've got is a Pinot Grigio, really young, barely any colour to it. Super clean, super light, super fresh. So the finish on this one is how long the flavour lasts for on your palate. Take a sip, everyone, swallow it, and then count how many seconds you can really taste that flavour for. Does it linger around for a really long time? That means that it's a really well-made wine. The longer that finishes, the better quality that wine is. If it's a really short finish, if you taste it and the flavour disappears straight away, it's quite a short finish and it's probably not such a good quality wine. That 2-second sort of disappearing act that they do. Once you get to sort of 5, that's when it's getting really good. So what does everyone think here? Ooh, okay. So, which is better with fish and chips, Riesling or champagne? That's a really good question, and having tried that combination recently, I'm going to say fish and chips and champagne is really nice. I went with a really full-bodied white wine with fish and chips, so it was full body, it felt rich, round, fresh, delicious with fish and chips. Possibly a bit too much, but it was absolutely wonderful. Anne's saying medium, Nick and Jess are saying buttery. I know exactly what you all mean. It's got a bit of something there, it's not the lightest in body. You can go way lighter, something there. But imagine the sort of 2 ends of your scale again. Pinot Grigio is on one side, and the other side is when you have basically a creme brulee in a glass in liquid form. White wines can be really full-bodied. So I think on our scale, we're only about a quarter of the way up. Maybe a tiny bit less than a quarter, to be honest. But it's always, you've got to try everything at either end of the scale just to remind yourself all the time, which basically means you've got to drink more wine, to be honest. Sorry, everyone. So what's everyone saying? 6 seconds on finish, 7 seconds, 6, 7. Everyone's saying 6 or 7. I also put 6 or 7. Oh, 5 to 6, perfect. I feel like we're all in the 6 mark. I wrote a little 6 on mine there. So it's quite a nice long finish, this. It lingers around, and that means it's going to be really good when you have it with food, because the flavour is still on your palate, sitting there while you can eat food. So the 2 flavours are really going to match together really nicely. Wonderful things will happen. So well done, everyone. We're all getting like the same. I like it when we all get the same answers. It means we're doing well. We're doing well. We're all learning. Wonderful. So what we'll do now is we'll look at our aromas. And our aromas are on our 2 circles on your tasting card here. So that first circle on your left hand side is what we're going to look at first. Every single wine that we drink in all of these tastings has something from that first circle. And that first circle is your main aromas. It's the fruit aromas. So it doesn't mean that there's actually fruit inside your wine, even though this one tastes like it because it's full of fruit. It just means that if you break your wine down into the chemical compounds, they're really similar to chemical compounds that also appear inside fruits. So it makes our brain think, ooh, that smells like lemon, that tastes like oranges. It's not, none of it actually in there, but it makes our brain think of it. So it is really tricky sometimes to figure out what those things are, which fruit it smells like. And it's hard to pinpoint them, but I think as you'll notice now, as soon as we start saying it in the comments, you'll read a flavour and think, yeah, absolutely, I smell it now. I smell it now. So what can you smell? What can you taste? Again, so your wine's probably warmed up a little bit now, which is great because the warmer our wine is, with white wine, the easier it is to smell aromas coming out of it. Swill it around in your glass, help yourself even more. You basically want your wine, for a tasting, I leave my wine out for a really long time so that it warms up. It's almost room temperature, not quite, but you want your wine between 7 and 12 degrees, depending on the body, depending on the complexity. The greater and cooler and better it is. When I say cooler, sorry, not temperature. But the more complex it is, the more wonderful the wine is. Usually the warmer you want to take it so you can make the most of all the aromas and flavours and textures going on inside it. Oh, everyone's coming through with the fruits. Okay, lovely. So, tropical fruits, pineapple, lemons, citrus, lime, lemon zest, which is always completely different to lemon juice, lemon zest. It's got a bit more grit to it. Lemon zest, apricot, peach, cantaloupe. Is that melon? Yes. Very specifically cantaloupe melon though. Yes, it's definitely not watermelon, definitely cantaloupe. Apple, honeysuckle, minerality. Ooh, wonderful ones going on there. And funnily enough that you say honeysuckle, when we were talking earlier when your Riesling can really age and it smells like petrol, beeswax, and the other one is honey. So if it smells a bit like honeysuckle, I always think that's, if you leave that a bit longer, it'll become honey if you get an older wine with that grape variety. But honeysuckle is definitely the little young version of it. I think the other day in the office I was describing it like Pokemon, and you have the young ones and then they sort of evolve into the next one. It's a completely different thing again, but similar, same bit different. Gooseberry, peach, floral, honeycomb, elderflower. Ooh, okay, and now Hannah and Anne have gone a little bit extra. So we've got all our flavours from our fruits. Every single bottle of wine will have fruit flavours inside it, and if it doesn't, it means your wine's gone off. It should smell of fruit. So I've put all of those exactly. The only ones that I added, I put a bit of nectarine, I put blossom, quite floral when you smell it, chamomile, really sort of aromatic. Don't know why I'm doing this in my hand like I've got the glass in my hand. Really aromatic, chamomile, floral, and also satsuma. Not quite orange, more like a floral orange, satsuma. Yeah, Adriana said that when it was colder she thought she could smell a bit of petrol, but it warmed up and smelled more like apricot. This is what I love inside wines. When you can only name sort of 3 fruit aromas and you can't get into anything more complex, or you don't have that depth of flavour, it's a bit of a simple wine. Enjoyable but simple. The more flavours you name, the more depth of flavour it has, the more interest a wine has. When we're talking about finish being one of our marks for a quality wine, the other one, depth of flavour, amazing. The more you have, the better it is. And another one, complexity. A little tick here as well. So we've got 3 ticks so far. So when you get to the second circle here, a winemaker has to actively make a choice to do something to their wines to get to that second circle. So it's aging it inside barrels, fermentations, lots of different techniques to get these flavours. And as, who was it who said it? Anne and someone else, Hannah, said it, and they started to get into the second circle flavours. So they've gone for, can you see the mineral at the top? And it says steel and stone, and they've said stone and flinty. And I know that sounds weird, and how do you know what flint smells, let alone tastes like? But for some reason, we kind of do know what it smells and tastes like. It sort of smells like, you know, after it's really hot and the rain comes, that's pure minerality, that smell just after the rain. So this is, yeah, flinty. Taste, it's minerality inside there. It's that clean quality to it. So we're having all those tropical fruits, and we're having this clean steeliness at the same time. So it's two wonderful things going on. It's giving it nice complexity. It's making it interesting. It's making your brain work as you drink it, which is wonderful. So Ruth has asked if the second circle is still aromas. So we've put aromas together. So we've put, because aromas that you taste and aromas that you smell, well, flavours that you taste, we've put them all together because you don't really have to separate them. Usually when you can smell lemon, you can taste lemon as well. There's only occasionally when you can smell one thing but you can't taste it, or vice versa. And you can still put it down here. You can just put it in the note box at the bottom. You can smell satsumas but you can't taste them. I think I was the other way around. No, I can smell satsumas as well. So it's usually you get both at the same time, so we put them together. So the first one is aromas, and the simple aromas, well, the basic ones, the main ones. And the second one are the weirder aromas. We call it complexity, when it gets a bit more weird and wonderful down there. So, oh, Nick and Jess have just asked a little question. What does autolytic mean? So that is in one of the circles down here. And autolytic is a biological thing, which is when a cell or a compound starts to self-digest, which sounds disgusting, but it's wonderful. And the flavours that we've put in here are yeast, toast, and brioche. So when you can smell bread inside a wine, or that toastiness, it's coming from the cells starting to self-digest, which sounds weird, but the cells are basically changing chemical makeup, breaking down a little bit, and it gives this wonderful funky smell and taste, which is wonderful. Tim says not so much mineral for him. It's not too heavy on the mineral, which is what I quite like. They've kept it fully juicy, tropical. And when we're talking about where this wine is grown, so it's in Czech. I'll just show you a little map. But this is the Czech Republic, and you can see around it, it's surrounded by Germany, Poland, Austria, Slovakia, and you can see Prague, which is the capital city, just on the top left, and Velké Pavlovice is the little town where this wine is made. So the Czech Republic gets loads and loads of sunshine. It's an incredibly sunny place. It's continental climate, which basically means it's surrounded by countries and land. It's not surrounded by the sea at all. So when we're talking about all the tropical aromas that we're getting inside here, it's because Czech is very, very hot in summer, but very, very cold in winter. This is what you get in continental countries. Very, very hot in summer means your grapes are going to really, really ripen, so you're getting more tropical flavours out of it. It's like the concentration of sugar is different. It gives you more of a tropical flavour. Another great thing about continental climate, especially here, is something called diurnal range. So diurnal range sounds confusing in the name, but it basically means if your daytime temperature is really warm and your nighttime temperature is really cold, that means you've got a high diurnal range. The bigger the gap there is between that, the higher your diurnal range is. And what that does is it adds towards your acidity. So the grape gets very hot in the daytime, but it gets really cold at nighttime, so it's sort of preserving itself again. And then when the morning comes, the grape's so cold it takes a long time to heat the grape up again. It's retaining all that refrigeration inside itself. It's self-refrigerating. How clever. And it means that it can just recover after that heat in the day, and it gives it really great acidity. It feels fresh. That's why you're getting tropical flavours, but it's so refreshing at the same time. I'll show you a little picture as well that I've got of, this is Pavelholm Look how smiley he is. He's the winemaker at Arte Vini. What a lovely man. There's just a little picture of him. There you go. But he's the one making this wonderful wine. So, does anybody have any more questions about Riesling, or shall we move on to our red wine? Sam says pumice stone, flint rather than chalk. Yes, yeah, pretty light minerality, but it's just there, almost steely. This the reason why it's so fresh, this wine, is it was aged inside stainless steel containers, and it's only 2019. Stainless steel containers basically doesn't affect or change the wine at all. It just keeps the wine exactly how it is from the field. It keeps it fresh and young. All about the vessel, stainless steel, which we'll remember for the next wine. Speaking of which, shall we drink it? Oh, this bottle feels much lighter than the last one. Don't know why. This bottle is StephanO. So Weingut means winery, and it basically means StephanO the winery. And StephanO is, well, he's not only a Shakespeare character in The Tempest. So you've got StephanO, and the wine's called Trinculo. And if anyone's ever read The Tempest or seen it as a play, StephanO, oh, let me get this the right way around. StephanO is the drunken butler or the cellar master, and Trinculo is the court jester. And the guy who runs the winery is called StephanO, that's his name. So he's basically called himself the drunken butler here because he's named all of his wines after Shakespeare characters. When you go on their website, they've got a little, it says, good wines are like Shakespeare comedies. So he's named all of his characters, all of his wines after characters. So there's also Sebastian, Prospero. He's got a little miniature one called Shakespeare as well. So I think he's very into Shakespeare. So he is from Austria. And StephanO, should I show you a little picture of him as well? Oh, we love our pictures. This is StephanO, and this is his wife Monica. Why is every single winemaker so smiley? Probably because they have a great life, because they just live on a vineyard and drink wine all the time, which sounds like the dream, to be honest. So StephanO is super smiley because that's his wife Monica. She was, well, she still is, she works at the university in the research, and she is a neurosurgeon. He was an IT specialist. They spent their whole lives working and just really wanted to have a vineyard. So they went through loads of seminars and courses and training for years and years and years on the side of their very stressful jobs, and then finally opened their own vineyard. So that's why they're so happy in all of their photos. So like the last wine, completely organic vineyard. To be organic, you have to be organic for 3 years. So everyone's loving StephanO. What a lovely man. You have to be organic for 3 years in order to be officially organic. So both of these wines have been organic for several years. They can say that they're fully organic. And it just means they don't use any chemical sprays on the vineyard. People do find that it shows better quality rather than big industrial farming. It can oh, did anything go off then? No. Instead of being really big industrial farming, it can really look after the vineyard much better, and it just looks more full of life. So this is where they are. Austria. So Austria, as you can see the Czech Republic at the very top there? So Czech Republic, if I show you the map of where we were in our last vineyard, so this is the Czech Republic, and the yellow dot is where the last winery was. And if you just travel slightly further south to Austria, it's really not that far away at all. So really similar. So we're going to have a similar climate again, continental climate. It's surrounded by land and countries, and it's surrounded by other amazing winemaking countries: Germany, Italy, Slovenia, Hungary, which I'm obsessed with, and Slovakia and Czech Republic. So what a wonderful part of the world. So Vienna's in the pink. It is at the, that is their capital. Burgenland is the region where their winery is. So StephanO and his wife, this is their vineyard, and I'll show you a little picture of Burgenland. It's where Austria is, because everyone thinks of Austria, you think sort of alpine, you think very mountainous, but that is very much in the west of Austria. This is the completely other side, it's in the east. So it's much more rolling hills, it's less extreme in terms of weather because it's, I mean, when you're up in a mountain, it's very snowy all the time. So it's not as bad here, it's just a little bit easier on the vines. So we'll find a nicer ripeness. So that is all our pictures. Back to us in the studio. So let's look at our tasting card. This one is a Blaufränkisch continental climate from Burgenland. And has anyone heard of Blaufränkisch before? It's a grape variety that's dating back to the Middle Ages. But I think it's most famous because Zweigelt is a really, really well-known wine. I think we've put out a Zweigelt before as well. Zweigelt is a grape that is the most grown in Austria. And the reason why is because in the 1920s, they were sort of experimenting with grapes, and you can crossbreed grape varieties to create super grape varieties, to make new ones, different things with different sort of attributes from both of their parent grapes. So in Austria, there's a man called Fritz Zweigelt, and he basically didn't blend it together, but he crossbred Blaufränkisch, the grape that we're having, with another grape. It was called Saint Laurent. Just thinking about fashion too much. And he crossbred them, and the reason was Blaufränkisch is this amazing grape variety. It does wonderful, wonderful wines, but it flowers really early in the year, very early in the spring. And basically, the flower, a vine buds, it turns into a flower, and that flower eventually becomes your lovely, lovely grape. So if you get frost after that vine has already turned into a flower, it will freeze the flower and the flower will fall off and you'll never get a grape. So if you get frost early, sort of mid-spring, after all the vines have already flowered, it can completely destroy your whole harvest. So when you're in Austria, you're just praying to not have your frost in spring too early. You kind of want to keep the frost for winter, but obviously that never happens. So quite often it's risky having Blaufränkisch. It means that you might lose your whole crop if you get a little bit of frost in sort of March, April time. Another reason is that Blaufränkisch ripens quite late in the year. So again, you have that wonderful summer period in the middle, but then at the very end, you still need a lot of sunshine in the autumn to keep your grape ripening, to get all the sugars out of it and all the flavours, make it taste. If you get it underripe, it's sour. You want it ripe and full. And Blaufränkisch ripens late, but they crossbred Blaufränkisch so that Zweigelt, the little hybrid grape, it flowers later in the year, missing all that frost sort of March, April, and it ripens earlier, so you're not sort of risking it over that autumn time, waiting for it to ripen fully. So I'm just reading all your comments. Yeah. Adriana said, thank God you've said the name because I have no idea how to say it. This is why I always think there's so many wonderful Austrian wines out there, but they're not as popular as so many wines that we know and hear about all the time because it's really difficult to say. And I think the way in which we order our wine has changed so much. So instead of just pointing at something on a menu, like back in the day, you could point it on the menu, but when you're shouting it across the bar saying, I want the Blaufränkisch, and you've already had a bottle of wine already, you're probably likely to forget the name Blaufränkisch. And that's why we don't really have many grape varieties that are difficult to say that are really popular these days. Things like Chablis, Sancerre, Rioja, they're all so fun to say that you want to order them all the time. You want to shout Chablis across the bar. It's way more fun than saying Grüne Veltliner. Grüne Veltliner is another great Austrian grape. So, oh, look at this. People answering other people's questions in the comments. Thank you so much, because I can't read that quickly. It's very hard to multitask. So, shall we start drinking our wine? Yeah. What I love about Blaufränkisch, actually we'll talk about it when we talk about flavours. This one smells so good. So cheers everyone to Blaufränkisch for being difficult to grow, but so worth it in the end. Oh, that is wonderful. So, just before we go on to everything, Lindsay has just asked a question about neither of the wines have a cork. Is one better than the other? Corks, screw caps were invented in the 1950s, and everyone in winemaking thought this is great because there's less of a chance that your wine can have a fault inside it. Corks can easily have a fault inside. Oxygen can get through. They can become what we call corked, which is when they got oxygen inside it and basically gone off. Screw caps have a smaller chance of becoming spoilt or corked with oxidation. But we love they found that when they put it out to consumers love the ritual of taking the whole cork out with your corkscrew. It's such a lovely ritual to do, and humans love rituals. It's just a really lovely thing. So they found that they kept using corks a lot because people like to use it. And they also thought it might affect the quality of wine if it's cork or if it's screw cap. It doesn't. When you're getting to bottles that need to be aged for a decade, for 20 years, 30 years, that's when it needs to be a cork, because it lets a tiny, tiny, tiny minimal amount of oxygen through, which lets the wine breathe and age and mature. But otherwise, cork, screw cap, doesn't really matter. Go for either one. Yeah. Emily is great answering. I feel like, Emily, you're my assistant tonight. She's co-hosting me, by the way. Answering all the questions in the comments, which is fantastic because I'm a slow reader, and it's also really small font. So let's start smelling this wine. What is the colour of our wine apart from red? Is it post-box red, or is it starting to look, can you see that slight browny tinge it's starting to get? That basically means when it's post-box red, it's young, it's fresh, it's just been made. The more of a brown tinge it gets, it's usually the older it starts to get. So when a red wine ages, it starts to lose its colour a little bit. It's not quite as vibrant. It's looking a bit, well, brown really. Can you see it? And it starts to lose its colour around the edges of the wine as well. Just where, if you hold it like this, if you just look at the very edge and the colour difference between the centre and the edge, you can really see it starting to lose its colour. So this one is a 2017. It's 3 years old. A lot's going on with it. And we'll taste it now. So, tannins inside this one. Colour, I'm going to say, not quite medium. It's still, when we talk about colour, yes, it's starting to age, but it is still quite clear. I'd say just before medium colour, this one. It definitely doesn't look like one of those really deep coloured wines that's really opaque. That's when we go intense with red wine. Tannin on this one. So as we said with the first one, tannin is coming from your skin contact. When you make wine, red wine, you leave it to macerate with the skin. So it's having all the skin contact with the juices, and it's drawing out the tannins from there. So when you taste it, if it has low tannin, it'll feel silky and juicy and just slip down. If you have a high tannin wine, it dries your mouth out. So feel your gums, the sides of your mouth, the tip of your tongue, the roof of your mouth. Does it feel really dry? Does it feel desert-like? Ooh, exciting. Okay. Yeah, okay. I can't wait to get into flavours. Everyone's mentioning it already. So, tannin on this one. Juicy or drying your mouth out? If you are having food at exactly the same time that you check your tannins, tannin gets softened by food. So if you're having anything salty or fatty, it softens out the tannins in wine. That's why red wine and salty fatty foods go so nicely together. Very, very nicely. So whereabouts is this one? I've put that this is about medium in tannin. It's definitely not easy and juicy. There's definitely something there, but it doesn't feel like too much. It's easy going. You can still just sit and drink it. When you have a really high tannin wine, they're the wines that you need to have some food with it to soften it out. Emily has put 2.5, 2 out of 5, sorry. I've put, yeah, mine's like a millimetre down from medium. Around 2 out of 5. That's perfect, actually. It's definitely not high tannin. Sometimes you can have, especially those northern Italian wines, sometimes it's pure tannin. It's wonderful, but my goodness, you can't drink it very quickly because your mouth needs to recover afterwards in a good way. So the acidity on this one. Tannin is drying your mouth out. Acidity is making your mouth water. So the way to test it, the last one was quite easy. We just talked about it being high acidity. It's a Riesling, not the highest. This one, have a sip, and the way to do it, for Matt and those at home who haven't done it before, take a sip, swallow it, open your mouth like this, and tilt your head forward and count how many seconds that your mouth is watering for, and count basically how many seconds before you have to close your mouth before you're going to dribble over yourself. It's called the dribble test. It's definitely a real thing, I promise. And you're basically seeing how much acidity is inside there, because tannin can make you wonder which is tannin, which is acidity. The two sort of compete with each other. It can be confusing. So just try it with your mouth open with the dribble test now. I'll also do it, okay, just so you know what to do. Yeah, my mouth's watering quite a bit. Risk Talks says 4. Yeah, 3-4 seconds. Emily says, okay, Tom asks, is high tannin related to how long the skin has been in contact with the juices, or down to the varietal of the grape and the skin thickness, how many tannins it can give it? And it's both, you're getting both. So sometimes you can have a wine that you really leave it to macerate with the skins for a long time, lots and lots of skin contact, but you can only get so far with skin contact. You can only get so much. If your skin doesn't contain many phenolic compounds, I can't say that word, then it can only give a bit of tannin. Things like gamay, really quite low in tannin sometimes. So you need to have both. You need a grape that contains lots of those compounds to give it lots of tannin, and a lot of maceration, a lot of skin contact to do both. This wine has, Blaufränkisch usually has quite a lot of tannin, so they do have quite a long maceration with their grapes, but it's definitely the varietal as well. Everyone's saying, oh, nice. Okay, we've got a whole mixture. Denny Design is saying 10 seconds before your mouth started to water and you dribbled on yourself. Very long time, very long time. I'm agreeing with the sort of the 3, 4s. Yeah, everyone's between that. Yeah, 3 to 4 seconds. So that puts it just slightly above medium in acidity. So we're slightly below medium in tannin, slightly above medium in acidity. And that's a really nice balance between the two. You don't want it to be really extreme difference in that, because otherwise your wine will feel off balance. It's not great, that. This feels high acidity, but it's got the tannin to back it up a little bit. It's not extremely matched. It's giving you a bit of interest there. Yeah, mouth watering. And sweetness, how much sugar is there inside your wine? How much sugar is present? I think we can all agree this wine's dry. Definitely sort of not many grams per litre of sugar inside this wine, but we can still really smell those fruit flavours going on, so it's tricking our brains a little bit. And body. So body's so much easier when it's a red wine. You can almost tell just from looking at what we said in colour, really. You can usually mark it in the same spot. Not always though. So we can think about our milk again. Does it feel clean? Does it cut through like water? Is it light in body? Or does it feel rich and rounded and full like a whole meal in a glass? I think this one is. I'm just waiting for you all to answer. There's like a 5-second delay on when I say something and when it actually goes out into the YouTube atmosphere. So I will give you 1 more second, and then I'm just gonna say quite light, really quite light. It's definitely not the lightest. You can go even lighter. Sometimes when you have really sort of young, juicy Pinot Noir at its extreme end of young juiciness, really light in body. This one's a little bit more than that. So this one, this grape, Blaufränkisch, is, you know how we talked about crossbreeding grapes and how grapes are basically one big family with lots of cousins and aunts and uncles and babies. So Blaufränkisch as a grape is genetically related to Gamay grape variety. So if you've ever had a Beaujolais, they have DNA similarities between them, so you'll notice a little bit of similarity. It's definitely light in body, but it's got a lot of interest going on there. It's still really interesting. So Emma said medium. Yeah, a bit less than that. I've gone like a 1 out of 5, I'd say. 1 out of 5. Definitely not 0. It's got a bit there. It's got a bit going on. And then finish with this one. So we've talked about our balance. We've got that. One of our ways to measure quality of wine. Finish, the other way to measure quality of wine. How long can we taste that flavour for? So out of 10 seconds, basically. You can get some wines that go more than 10, but that's when you're paying big bucks. You know, when people are spending thousands of pounds on wine, they're the wines that sort of last and last and last and last and last and last. So 10 is usually, 0 to 10 is usually the normal sort of range that you get for wines up to like £100, and then you go a bit further than 10 sometimes. So how many out of 10? Have a sip, swallow it, count how many seconds. If you have had quite a few wines by now, you might be counting slower in seconds or faster. So maybe have a clock with second hands in front of you. Makes it a bit easier. So I have put 5 for this one. It lingers around for a bit, but it's not really staying. Oh, Emily's put 10 or 11. Wow, I thought it was 5 on this one. Just have to try it again. Okay, I got 6 that time. I think I'm still around there. Everyone is affected slightly differently by acidity, by tannin. We all have different taste buds. We all react differently to things. We're all slightly tuned differently. So what my favourite thing to do is, and what I was always taught when I was doing my wine exams, is you sort of adjust yourselves. If your scale is here and someone else's scale is here, and most people's scales average out here, you can just adjust yourself slightly. So if you say, if you think something's really high acidity and someone thinks that's medium, you can adjust yourself. And then when you ask for wines in a supermarket and say, or in a wine shop, and say you want something, if in your head it's high acidity, if you ask for medium acidity, you're getting exactly what you want then, and everyone sort of has that same universal scale. So, oh, Emily said it's because she had a really big gulp. Could be. And it's really hard because it doesn't just completely drop off straight away. It's not like the flavour just disappears. It tails off slowly, especially when you've got tannin and acidity going on as well. It's difficult to pinpoint where the flavour stops exactly. But yeah, we're getting a lot of sort of 6, 7, a 4 in there, 5. And yeah, what other people say sometimes can skew what you say as well, what you think as well. Always go with your gut, definitely. So, Emma says, does it make a difference if you had the bottle open for a couple of days? Yes, a little bit. So if you have, especially if you decant your wine, if you decant a wine, it can lose some of its flavours if you decant it for too long. So you might not taste as many flavours, you might get a shorter length of flavour. Could be to do with it. Should I do a little Instagram video on decanting, when to and when not? And also how to pronounce things. Let us know in YouTube, in Instagram DMs, or just any way that you can comment. Let us know what videos you want to see on Instagram as well. So finish, we're all about the 6 mark, 5, 6. And aromas, what aromas are we getting? Blaufränkisch is known for being earthy, super, like a woodland Blaufränkisch. But what we have here is a really well done Blaufränkisch. It has that woodland, it has the earthiness. I mean, I think Josh described Blaufränkisch as sometimes being dragged along a dirt track, which isn't very nice. But when he tasted this as well, he said, it's wonderful, it's so packed full of fruit, this one. So yeah, bit different for a Blaufränkisch. You can tell it's Blaufränkisch when it feels really woodlandy. You can tell this is Blaufränkisch, but it has that extra bit of fruit going on inside it. It's really nicely balanced. Sometimes when you just have pure dirt track, it's not very nicely balanced. You don't really want to drink a dirt track. You want that nice balance with the fruitiness and juiciness, and that dirt track gives you a bit of interest. So, oh wonderful, everyone wants lots of Instagram videos. Yeah, let me know what topics you want and I'll just chat loads about it. It'll be very fun. So, Katie says blackcurrant. Yes, pure blackcurrant. I think this wine smells like a countryside walk. You know, when you're walking through, there's loads of brambles and the bushes, and it smells a bit woodlandy, and you can smell a bit of, let's have a red cherry, plums, mushroom. Great shout in the comments. Definitely black currants, pepper. Yeah, great shout, Hannah. Very well done. I've put, yeah, black pepper. It's got like a spiciness to it. When you smell it, it smells wonderful. You just want to fall into the glass. But when you taste it, it's got a real spice behind it. Red cherry, yeah, everyone's saying red cherry. Red currant, black, so we've got black fruits, we've got red fruits in there, but they're really nicely ripe, juicy fruits. And then we've gone into the second circle with that black pepper, that bit of spice inside it. So this wine is a 2017, and again, it's all about the vessels. So I think someone said in the comments earlier about oak. This wine is aged inside oak barrels. Oak barrels change how a wine feels and can add flavours to it. So when you're tasting, the texture to this wine feels like it's really been inside an oak barrel. It's smoothing out, it's filling out as well. Those tannins feel there, but they don't feel harsh in your face. They feel, they feel nicely softened out, mellowed a little bit. It's had 3 years as well to age. So another thing that oak barrels can do is wood is porous. So you always age wine inside an oak barrel. They've tried it inside different types of wood, and they've always added sort of negative things to it, too much tannin or too much bitterness or not enough flavour. But because oak is really a hard wood, it's really compacted up together nicely. So it's not too porous, but it's definitely porous and giving something to your wine. It's mixing in there. And when you have a brand new oak barrel, it can give you flavours of vanilla, baking spice, coconut, caramel, all wonderful flavours. But that's when you have a brand new barrel. That's when it's literally just been chopped down, turned into a barrel, freshly made. It's just like having a fresh wooden chair in your room. You can smell it. You can smell that you just bought it. But when you have an old barrel, it loses its smells and aromas then. It's like having an old chair in a room. You can't smell it anymore. It just smells neutral. And this has been inside old oak barrels. So it's not getting the flavour of the new oak. It's not getting that vanilla, coconut, caramel, but it is getting the texture, definitely. Emily's asked about the difference between American and French oak. So we always talk about American and French oak because historically they're the two that we've gone for. They're basically, it's either if it's grown in France or if it's grown in America, and they're genetically slightly different. Still oak trees, but there's just a slight difference to them. And it gives different flavours. So French oak gives you more creamy vanilla or baking spices, cinnamon, cloves. American oak is the one that gives you more coconut, more caramel. It's a bit more rounded in flavour. And I know that sounds weird because they're two oak trees, but they do taste different. And they don't just use American and French. So one of the wines, the wine from March actually, I've just been doing some research on it. And it is from Bulgarian oak. So you can get Slovenian oak, Slovakian oak. You can get oak from all over, but people mainly focus on American and French because they're the two go-to. It's like when you start learning about wines, you start learning about French wines because it's the one to go to. It's where you learn the things before you can branch out into the other ones. So I'm really excited for the March box because we're having some new oak, not just American, not just French as well. So that'll be very exciting. Hannah's asked if aging an oak means more sulfites need to be added. And sulfites are a preservative, so I don't think that'll affect how much sulfites need to be added. It's basically how stable the wine is, how long it will last inside your bottle. So no, I don't think it affects it. You can still age it inside oak, like the Gavi that we had, that had from last month, that had no sulfites added, but that had some really interesting aging on it. They just did magical things inside the vineyard to mean that it didn't need sulfites. It's a big risk not putting sulfites in your wine because it is a preservative, so it does make sure that your wine's in the same state as when you put it in the bottle. Cecily's put vanilla. I see what there's like a little bit of an almost sweetness to it. I can barely smell vanilla. There's almost a hint towards it, but you can tell old oak. It might have given it that slight hint of vanilla, but it's definitely not that full-on vanilla that you get from new oak. So, verdicts on both the wine, basically. Which was everyone's favourite, and did you like both of them? I think my favourite, I can't choose, I do this every week. I always try and pick a favourite. They're like my children, I can't pick a favourite, I love them all. Sam said almonds, Julio said chocolate. Yeah, I think more chocolate than vanilla. Yeah, a little bit chocolatey. Ooh. Emma liked both, wonderful. Oh, Katie said smoky as well, and Anne said forest floor. Yes, both. What a wonderful wine. This wine will go with so many foods as well. So I think someone mentioned, was it Hannah who mentioned mushrooms earlier? The wine smells like mushrooms, like forest floor. It'll go really well with mushrooms. You know when you get the really big mushrooms and have it as a steak mushroom? Whew, that'll be really lovely with this wine. And also, Italian food will go really nicely with this wine because you've got the juicy flavours and it's so foresty and earthy and dry. If you have that with pasta ragu or pasta with loads of tomatoes and a big sauce cooked down, or pizza, wonderful. And especially tannin with salty things is delicious, as we all know. So preferred the red, love them both, says Diane. Natasha and Joshua say they're usually rouge lovers but liked the white tonight. Yes, I'm so pleased. Riesling fans, we all love a Riesling. And Adriana loves a Riesling too, and has confirmed it's your new favourite varietal. Yes, I'm so pleased. That makes me really happy. And Louise said both are great, and it honestly depends what you're serving it with. I couldn't agree more. And when we always talk about food pairings, what we want to talk about as well is situation pairings. I wouldn't have, well, might do. I wouldn't have the Blaufränkisch sort of at lunchtime, but I would definitely have that Riesling with breakfast, to be honest. Riesling at Sunday brunch would be really nice because it's so fruity and there's so much fruit concentration inside it. It's almost like having a mimosa, basically. It'd be delicious. Anne said, oh, this is exciting, Anne, that you had green and black's cherry chocolate and the red reminds you of that. Nice. Well, funnily enough, we've got some tastings planned coming up. So I don't know if anyone's been to my Zoom tastings, and when I say I don't know, I mean Anne definitely has with Martin. And so there's a few Zoom tastings coming up if you want, and it's basically a group of us, we all buy the same wines. And it's with me, and very nice, I promise. And the next one we have is champagne on Friday the 26th of March. Then on Saturday the 27th, we're talking about everything champagne, everything sparkling, and have the most wonderful, wonderful, wonderful champagne. I'm really, really excited that I could cry. I love champagne. And the other one on Saturday the 27th is going to be Burgundy. Oh my goodness, I can't wait for that weekend. So we've got an amazing white Burgundy, an amazing red Burgundy, and we're just going to chat about Burgundy and drink Burgundy, and it's wonderful. Then the next one after that is natural wines. So we're just talking about natural wines. Got two wonderful ones. Got a French one and a Spanish one. They're very, very nice. Emily said she's coming to the Burgundy one. Yes, can't wait. And then after that we have a few planned in the atmosphere which aren't in writing yet, but there's probably going to be a port and cheese one. God, I'm so excited. And we're also going to do a pairing with chocolate and wine, because I sat at my desk last week and tried lots of chocolate and lots of wine together, and it was probably the best day ever. And wow, they go really well together, which is very interesting. So I've got lots of research on that done. Can't wait for you to try it. Eloise said champagne tasting is on her birthday. It's probably a great birthday thing to do with all your friends. And Rachel's asked where we can sign up for those. And if you go onto our website, I believe they are all on there. And if I think they are, I'm pretty sure they're on our website. But if you can't find them, just send us a message, send us an email. Fiona will be straight there sending you the link. You've probably all met Fiona if you've ever emailed us or messaged us. Port and cheese, yes. Are we planning to do a dessert wine? We don't have any dessert wines in at the moment, but if you would all like to do a dessert wine, then please email us. And if there's a big group of you, then I'll look into it. But yeah, we're doing a port for now and it's delicious. Really wonderful port. How do we get the upcoming Burgundy wines? I will well, it's definitely on the website, but I'll make sure there's a link available if you cannot find it. And Vacuvin, Sam. Okay, so we put in our newsletter when we were talking about how to keep wines, we put the Ito, which I think is very similar to Vacuvin, and it basically press it down, and it's a bit like, it looks like a cafetiere when you press your coffee down, but instead of pressing your coffee down, it just sits on top of your wine and makes sure that no air touches your wine, and apparently that can last really well for a week, and it's like you've never opened it. Apparently it's wonderful. Oh yes, dessert wine fans, yes, Riesling. Okay, so if anybody has any more questions, feel free to drop us a message on Instagram, email us, just chat to us all the time because we love it. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone who came to the tasting. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I do hope that you finished both wines and don't need your Vacuvin to sort of save it for the next day. Oh, okay, Hungarian Tokaj, I would love to do that because I love Hungarian wines. We do have some Hungarian Cab Franc in stock, which is absolutely out of this world if you'd like to buy some of that. It is in the surplus store. If you log onto your account, click on more wines, go on surplus store, and there's some Hungarian Cab Franc there. It's very nice. But thank you so much, everyone. It's lovely to see you all again. Bye, everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening and enjoy the rest of your wine and have a glass of water. Goodbye, everyone.